Hello and welcome to my first real video of 2019. I don't count the last one because it was kind of a throwback to last year. I wasn't creating anything new, but today we're going to create something new. I'm going to take a new portrait for my Instagram, social media, all that stuff, and I'm going to take you along for the ride. And because there's no model here and no assistant, it's just going to be me. So I'm going to be modeling for myself, which will mean the process is a little bit different. But I'll tell you about what things I do differently for taking a self-portrait. This will kind of be like my favorite portrait lighting setup slash how to take a self-portrait. But yeah, so I'm gonna walk you through the whole process, kind of starting at the beginning. And now how I always start is over here. This is kind of my tool chest, and I use it to store all my camera gear in. So when I would start, I'd pick out the kind of equipment I'm gonna use, and I'll start there. First step, of course, is to pick a camera. I'm going to go with the Sony a7 III, kind of a no-brainer for me. I've been using it for just about everything these days. Full frame, 24 megapixels, perfectly good for what we're going to be doing today. And then I need a lens. I'm going to go with the Sony 85 1.8. Good choice for portraiture and stuff. I've been using it for other things as well. It's super sharp. Really love this lens. What else do I need? Oh, flash trigger. This thing's gonna connect on the camera and it's gonna make it so that my lights will fire and stuff. Lights and strobes and stands and stuff are all over there, so we'll get to that in a bit. I also need tripod plate. It's gonna allow me to connect the camera to the tripod. Tripod's also over there. And then I need a battery. So in here's where I keep all my batteries and stuff. So we're gonna need 3 batteries. I'm using 2 lights today, so we'll need 2 batteries for the Explorer 200s, and then I'm gonna need battery for the a7 III, and that should be it from over here. So now that I have all my equipment ready, it's time to assemble it all, put the camera together and the like. And I'm not gonna need these quite yet. I'm gonna get the strobe set up before I put the batteries on them. Camera will need battery, and I like to put the camera with the battery and the memory card first thing, because that way I can set it to format the memory card while I do the rest of the assembly. And that's an important step to me because you never know when something might go weird with a memory card. So if you make sure that you format it before you use it every time, the chances of something going wrong are much lesser. So I actually have that set in my my favorites menu. I have it set for format. So I can just go ahead and format memory card. While that's formatting, I'll go ahead and check the lens. Make sure there's no dust on it. I have a little blower guy that I use for that. It was fine, but I can check anyways. Put that face down so that way no dust can fall into it. Camera body, do the exact same thing. Looks good, but can't hurt to blow it anyways. And then put the lens on. It's not a necessary step, but it's better to just go through the process of doing it every time, because there's nothing worse than getting back to your computer to edit some photos and realizing that it's all done. You can turn the camera off. And realizing that there's dust all over your lens, so your photos have spots in them that you now have to Photoshop out. So I'm going to put the lens cap and end cap in there and body cap here, exactly where the camera lens and body live. That way I always know where they are. Tripod plate will go on the bottom. All this stuff is just super boring, but it's part of the process of getting ready to do a shoot, so I thought I'd include it anyways. I don't really have any tips or tricks for any of this stuff. I like to leave the batteries in this guy. I don't really know why. Just because they last for like forever, so I just don't bother to replace them until they're dying. And I have so many AA's that there's always some charge. So that stuff is all good to go, and that means I can go set up my lights. So for this setup, I'm going to use 2 lights. I've already said that, but that means I need 2 light stands. One of them is going to be a background light, so I'm going to use a short light stand. And I have 1 shorter light stand. These are C-stands. They're super great, really high quality, really solid light stands. I really adore them. And this one's good because it's nice and short, and then it has a short arm on it, so I can put the light right behind me. That's going to be perfect for my background light. And then I'm also going to need a taller light stand. That's going to be my main light, just going to be over the top. And then I'm also going to use another light stand just to get a little bit of bounce underneath. So tall light stand for the bounce, just because it has a long arm, I'm going to have it come in from the side. And then I'm going to use this light stand, which already has a light on it. I'm just going to remove this softbox because I'm going to be using a round softbox. It's called a Parapop. It is my favorite lighting modifier by far. The strip boxes are cool, but they're just not quite the same. And this is the light that I'm going to be using. This is a Flashpoint Evolved 200. I think I said it was an Explorer 200. It's an Evolved 200. And it's on this twin head thing. The reason that I love this twin head thing is that it allows you to put the bulb on the front and center it, and then have a more solid connection as opposed to placing this in some sort of weird bracket. So it connects very solidly, and you can put two of them on to get more power. But the main thing is it allows you to use the main bulb and also have a modeling lamp, which allows you to get some light and kind of get a preview of what it's going to look like before you take the photo. So I'm going to use this guy as my second light, and this one, which I'm going to have to take off this stand, as my first light. So the reason that I call this my first light is that I like to start with the background, mostly just because when you start with the lights in the front, sometimes you won't space enough room behind you, behind the background, because you want as much room between your background and your subject as possible. But also, I have a small studio, so I like to keep things relatively compressed so I still have maneuverability around, which means I like to start as close to the background as possible, setting my lights up, and then I move away from the background, and that means that I take up as little space as possible. So the background light's going to go on first, only because by putting it on first and making sure that I have its spread of light set up properly, I won't have to shift everything around afterwards. So that's the only reason it's my first light, even though technically it's not the key light, and the key light should be first, but whatever. So the first thing to do when putting a light like this on a stand is you want to make sure that it's properly ready to receive the light. You don't want to be putting it on at a weird angle or upside down or whatever, because then if you lose your grip, you drop the light, you break it. So step one is I'm going to take the head and rotate the arm up so it's facing straight up. And then I'm just going to put the light on top, make sure it goes all the way down, tighten up, good to go. That's all there really is to it. And then if you want to adjust the light, you can always, grab the head, move it around, all that good stuff. And the general rule of thumb is that you want the light to be facing the direction of the longest leg. That's just because if you put your lighting modifier on the front and it's heavy, you don't want it tipping over, and the strongest direction for one of these stands is the longest leg. It'll resist tipping in that direction the very most. But now that we have our lights set up, I'm going to unroll the background. Normally, if I was shooting in the studio like this, I'd just leave the lights on all the time, but for the case of making this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the lights off, so that way you can see the lighting setup, get it constructed. I'll leave my my modeling lamps on, and you'll be able to see, as I put the light into the scene, exactly what it does, just live, as opposed to me having to take a million photos for you to see. I'll do that as well, but for the most part, you're going to be able to see how the light is being constructed, because I'm going to turn the lights off. Hey Google, turn off the lights. So I went ahead and I put the battery in the strobe, and what I'm going to use is this is a 7-inch reflector. So you see what it does is it basically prevents the light from going everywhere and makes it go into a specific region. So if I turn this light around, you'll be able to see that it makes a circle on the wall, but I don't want a circle that's this massive. Because if it's going to be a relatively tight headshot, we're only going to see about this much of the background. So in order to make the light be a smaller circle, we're going to use something called a grid. So I have a couple different sized grids here. This is a 20 degree, this is a 10 degree. Basically the degrees is just how much it focuses the light. So just like a smaller number of degrees would be a tighter beam, and a larger number of degrees would be wider. Same concept here. So if I put the 20-degree grid in, we'll be able to see exactly how much light that'll cut out. And you can see that's probably a pretty decent size. I'm gonna try the 10-degree though. That may be more what I'm feeling, because I want it to be pretty tight little circle. Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. I think that's what I'm gonna go with. Turn on the lights. So now that I have one light set up, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my tripod so that way I can show you from the angle of the camera that I'm gonna be using how things are getting set up. This is a really big beefy tripod. It's a Manfrotto video tripod actually, with a ball head mount, and that means that I can level it right here at the tripod. And then I have two arms on it which allow me to put it out over things or swing it out. It's very versatile. And this is a geared tripod head, which means I can rotate a knob and move it in fractions of a degree at a time, or I can release it and then rotate it freely. It's great for product photography and the light getting super precise, but also it's good and solid for stuff like headshots like we're doing today. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this up and put the camera on it. So with my tripod in place, I can go ahead and throw the camera on it. I already put the tripod plate on it, so we're all good to do that. And now I have to set the height. And how I'm gonna do that is I'm just gonna loosen this arm, slide it up. Okay, that's centered with my face. So you might think, oh, perfect. That's the perfect height to photograph a portrait. But the problem is, we don't want to shoot this in landscape orientation. We want to shoot it in portrait orientation. So, got to flip the camera around. And when you do that, you lose some height. So we're going to have to bring the camera up a little bit more. Basically, even with my nose. There we go. Tripod's all good to go. Now, one of the cool things about this flash system is when you turn it on, it'll brighten the camera up so that it basically completely matches what you'd see with your own eyes. Because when you set your exposure on the camera, you want to set it so that everything's dark. So that way there's no light involved with the scene. So if I turn the flash system off, you'll notice it goes back to showing me the real world. And I want to shoot this photo wide open. I want it to be all the way at f1.8. And you can see that even at ISO 50 and 1/250th of a second, which is the sync speed of most flashes. It's the sync speed of this camera. So I could use high-speed sync, but that's going to do, it can sometimes do weird things with the shadows and the like, so I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to leave it at 1/250th, the sync speed of this camera. But there's still some light here in the scene. If I move it around, you can see that there's like a little bit of grayness. I don't want that. I want this to be a perfectly dark scene. And so how I'm going to compensate for that is by turning the lights off, which is exactly why I had them off before. But in this case, because we're shooting the video, I'm not using the flash at all. So I'm actually just going to switch over to video mode. And then I can put the shutter speed down at 50th of a second. So we're going to shoot 24p. I'm actually going to adjust this a little bit because it looks like we're not quite level. There we go, level. Actually, what I'm going to do, level it with the background, because sometimes, you know, we're not, looks like we're level. But so this will actually give me a pretty fair representation of what the light's actually going to look like as we shoot video as opposed to stills. So I'm going to go ahead and change the focus here to be relatively out of focus. And then go ahead and hit record. And hey Google, turn off the lights. So now we can see we're back to it being pitch black. But if I turn that modeling lamp back on, we can see the light in the background yet again. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my next light. So I've got the modeling lamp on so we can see exactly what the light's going to be doing again. And I need to grab my softbox. So this is the Parapop that I was talking about. Reason it's called that is because it collapses with a loud popping noise. And it's relatively round. And the fact that it's round is going to give us a nice catch light in the eye. And you'll note it's also, it's a soft light. It's a softbox. So as I apply this softbox, there's 2 layers of diffusion. There's 2 layers of cloth inside of it. one on the inside, one on the outside. And these are going to allow us to get nice soft light coming off of it, which is very, very pleasing on the face especially. And so if I add this to our setup here, straight on, it's going to be one-sided kind of dramatic light, which is cool and all, but not what I'm going for. I want something that's coming down from above that's going to give me nice shadows under the jaw and the like that I can then fill in with a reflector. So I'm going to use the awesome features of this stand to get it up above. So I'm going to go ahead and bring a stool in here. This way, when I sit down, hopefully I'll be in focus, because I should be able to sit in the exact same spot every single time. And basically we have this light just out of frame. So if it came down any more, it would become visible to the main camera. But so with it nice and flat, because we don't want any spill onto the background behind me, we should get a nice soft light across my face. But it's a little bit dramatic here. It's too much drama, too dark of shadows, so I need to fill that in a little bit, and that's where the next step comes into play. So this next step uses a big piece of white foam board, a clamp, a grip head, and our second light stand. So the first step is we're going to bring the arm in a little bit. This is what's going to hold our piece of foam core in place. We're going to take the grip head, and we're going to attach it to the arm. Nice and easy. Then our clamp. Apparently this was tightened all the way. Clamp gets attached. There we go. And then piece of foam board. I normally tend to just use the same side to clamp every time. Gets clamped. And now should be able to adjust it pretty much however we want. And the goal here is basically to get it right under my face. So it's going to take a little bit of finagling. Got to get it perfectly positioned. But once it's in place, we'll have a beautiful fill under the chin. And then just like that, hopefully we'll have what is my favorite portrait lighting setup. Now the balance of the lights isn't going to be quite perfect. These the modeling lamps only have 3 levels of power, 4 technically if you count off, and because of that I can't quite get it to fully demonstrate what the light's going to look like. But if we go ahead and take the photo, you'll be able to see exactly what you can accomplish with this super simple 2-light setup. So normally when I'm doing portraiture, I use 2 features in tandem. First off, I use something called back button focus, which means the camera focuses when you press a button, and then it holds that focus until you release it, or you have it in continuous, so it just always keeps it in focus. And the other thing is called eye autofocus, which is the camera just focuses on the eye, and it holds the focus there really well. Sony cameras are awesome at that. And it's an amazing feature, but you can't use it when you're using the self-timer. So unfortunately, because I have to run back and forth to press the shutter on the camera, no autofocus. So what I have to do is I have to press the button on the camera. It starts the 10-second timer. I have to come all the way around to where I'm sitting. I have to remember the exact way I was sitting when I set up the focus. I have to get ready for the photo, take the photo, and then I have to come all the way around to check to see if it's in focus. Photos, zoom in, check eye focus, and I missed focus on the eyes, which means I have to do the whole thing all over again till I get one with the eyes in focus. But such is life when you're doing self-portraiture, right? So now that I've gone through and I've taken a bunch of photos, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a look at the camera. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some good ones in here, I think. So I'll go ahead and shut down the camera, grab the memory card, and take them over to the computer to edit. But I think editing photos should be another video. I mean, I can make a whole video just about editing stuff. portraits especially. So there you have it. That is my favorite way to do portrait lighting. There's so many ways to do it out there. This is just one. It's not always the best solution. There's definitely cases where this wouldn't really fit with the theme or the client brief, but it is a setup that I love to use for just simple, easy, beautiful headshots. And hopefully you enjoyed the results. So if you did enjoy this video, if you thought it was kind of fun getting to go on this journey through the studio with me, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And check me out on Instagram to see more photos just like this one. And until next time, toodles.